Hey, book lovers. Welcome to While I Read. I'm Katie Dodrell, and today I'm going to talk to you about the books I'm most excited to read in the month of March. There are a lot of good mysteries and cozy mysteries and thrillers coming out this month, and I'm really excited to read them and to tell you about them today. So let's go ahead and get started. As usual, all of the books that I'm going to tell you about are linked in the description box. If you click that link to buy the book, then I'll get a small percentage of the proceeds. That's a way that you can help my channel at no extra cost to you. So let's get started. The first book I'm going to tell you about is We Were Warned by Chelsea Ichaso with a publication date of March 4th. So this is a YA thriller. So We Were Warned is about a teenager named Eden, and she is not really in the popular crowd at her school. She's actually bullied because of some kind of family scandal in her past. But there is this old, like, falling down beach resort in the town, and years ago, like 20 years ago, there was a murder there, and now the rumors are that this place is cursed. And actually, I think a couple of teenagers who explored it at some point in the past were killed. So there's a big party at this beach resort because that's what teenagers do. And Eden ends up going to the party, even though she knows that some of the kids who bully her are going to be there. So she's on edge about going there, but she is really surprised when there is another death there the night of the party. So the police rule the death an accident, but Eden knows that it's not. And so she starts trying to figure out what really happened and ends up having to team up with some of the kids from her school who are not really that nice. So this is a YA thriller. I don't really read a lot of them, but the plot with the abandoned beach resort sounds intriguing. So this looks like this could be an interesting book to pick up. Count My Lies by Sophie Stava is being published on March 4th. So, this is a thriller about a woman named Sloane who admits that she is a liar. She makes up lies just to make her life a little bit more exciting. So one day in the park, she sees this girl crying, and she tells the girl's attractive dad that she's a nurse, and she helps him get a bee sting out of the girl's foot. So she ends up becoming a nanny for this wealthy family. It's like the mom and the dad and the little girl. I'm not sure if there are any other family members. So they live this life of luxury, and Sloane is sort of pulled into their life. But then it starts seeming that maybe she's not the only one who's telling lies. Maybe some people in this family are also lying. And maybe this family isn't quite as perfect as they seem. So this book has good reviews. People say they've read it in just one night. So I'm looking forward to giving it a try. Finlay Donovan Digs Her Own Grave is the fifth book in the Finlay Donovan series. I have to admit, I have not read this series, but I want to. It's one that is on my list of books that I want to read. It's in my TBR. So, Finlay Donovan is apparently a single mom. She's a writer. And this book, this fifth book in the series, she and her nanny, Vero, are working to solve a crime together. So apparently, Finley's busybody neighbor, Mrs. Haggerty, ends up with a body in her backyard. And so at first, Mrs. Haggerty is suspected of the crime. And then, even when she's cleared of being suspected, she can't live in her home because it's like an active crime scene. So she has to move in with Finlay and her kids and their nanny, Vero. So Finlay and Vero are trying to solve this crime so Mrs. Haggerty can get out of their house. So this series just sounds so good to me. Like, I've read the synopses of every book in it, and I really need to get started on this series. So if you're reading the Finlay Donovan series, you will want to try out this fifth book. Kills Well with Others by Deanna Rayburn is being published March 11th. This was one of my most anticipated books of 2025, and I've already read an arc of this book, and you will definitely want to read this book. It's a sequel to Killers of a Certain Age, and it's about female assassins in their 60s. So, in the first book, the female assassins are sort of being forcibly retired, but then it turns out their agency is actually trying to eliminate them. In this book, they are called out of retirement to do another job for their agency, the museum. And these books are both so exciting. These women travel the globe. They end up in England, Venice, a lot of other countries that I can't even think of. They travel by boat, by train. It's just really fun to read. They are great, complex characters. I felt like this book that's being published, Killed Well with Others, was not quite as good as the first book, but it's still really funny, really adventurous, and has great characters. So you should definitely give this series a try. Also being published on March 11th is The Summer Guest by Tess Gerritsen. So this is the second book in the Martini Club series by Tess Gerritsen. And this series is about retired CIA agents in Maine. So the main character is a woman named Maggie Bird. She's a retired CIA agent. In the first book, she ends up being sort of forced out of retirement because there's a body in her yard and it has to do with her past in the CIA. In this book, apparently, there's a body found, or no, there's a teenager who goes missing, and her neighbor is accused of the crime. So Maggie is trying to figure out who really committed this crime because she doesn't believe her friend and neighbor did it. So we get some of the same characters from the first book. Joe Thibodeau, who is the chief of police in this town, who is sort of like, who are these people? With Maggie, and there are other retired CIA agents who live in this town. It's really funny because it turns out this town is full of these retired spies who, have been just like regular business owners or farmers, but it turns out they're actually spies. So they all are working together to solve this crime. I really enjoyed the first book. It has a lot of heart, a lot of like humor related to aging. It's also kind of poignant. And so I'm looking forward to this second one in the series. The Retreat by Kristen Ritter is being published on March 25th. Kristen Ritter is apparently an actress. I don't think I've seen anything that she's been in, but if that name sounds familiar to you, that's probably the reason why. So this book is about a con artist named Liz. She takes a job at this beautiful Mexican villa owned by a woman named Isabel. And so Liz is there at this luxurious villa on her own. She's supposed to be overseeing the installation of this piece of art, but she's living there in the villa while she does this, and she gets mistaken for Isabel. And so she can't resist with her, con artist tendencies. She just can't resist going along with it, even though apparently she wasn't purposely trying to pretend to be Isabel, but she gets mistaken for her, and so she just starts going along with it. And so she gets drawn into this luxurious society, all of these rich, glamorous people. But then she starts discovering that Isabel may have some dangerous secrets and that Liz may have become ensnared in this danger herself. So this sounds great, nice beachy read. She's staying at this beautiful beach resort. It just sounds like something that I'll really enjoy. The Other People by C.B. Everett being published on March 25th. So this book is described as a mixture of And Then There Were None and Shutter Island. So this group of 10 people wake up in this dark, abandoned house. They don't know how they got there. So they discover that they have to find this missing girl, or they have to figure out where this girl is in order to get out of the house. But there's also a killer there among them. So it sounds like an intriguing locked room mystery. The comparison with Shutter Island makes me worry that it might be a bit too dark and scary for me, but I do want to give this one a try. Saltwater by Katie Hayes is being published on March 25th. So in 1992, a woman named Sarah Lingate was found dead outside of her family home on the Isle of Capri. So there was suspicion that her husband or maybe her in laws might have been responsible for her death. She left behind a husband and a 3-year-old daughter, but there was never any proof that her death was anything other than an accident. And so the Lingate family still returns to this home every year to stay. Well, on the 30th anniversary of Sarah Lingate's death, the family arrives to stay. So her daughter, Helen, is sort of like held prisoner in the family. Not exactly held prisoner, but she's not able to do what she wants to do. She doesn't really have a life outside of her rich family. But while they are there at this 30th anniversary, Helen gets a package that contains a necklace that Sarah wore. So she starts investigating and trying to figure out what happened to her mother. So it sounds like this would be like a good, summary sort of beach read. Maybe I'll get to go to the beach sometime in March and I can read this book then. The last book I want to tell you about that I'm excited to read in March is This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. So this book is about a college student named Jane Sharp. Jane has lost her father, and so while she's dealing with her grief, she ends up getting interested in true crime. And so she meets some people on the internet. She starts learning about how to, solve crimes from afar, how to look into some of these cases and figure things out. So then there is a murder in Idaho of 3 female college students. And so Jane and some of her internet true crime friends start trying to solve this crime. And so they end up like getting closer and closer to the action in this case to the point that they end up being in danger themselves. So apparently this book is told from Jane's perspective 1 year after the events have happened. It sounds good. I always like a story that's set on a college campus. Jane sounds like an interesting character. I like the idea of these internet sleuths working together to solve a crime. So sounds like it'll be worth checking out. So that's it for the books that I'm excited to read in March. Are you planning on reading any of these books? What books are you excited about? Please let me know in the comments. If you like this video and want more book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Now, go take a walk while I read.